Initial reports almost always get revised. Things that are said have to be taken back on the night of breaking news of this sort. So please, everything with a grain of salt, unless you get it directly from the Secret Service. But this is from Sean Davis of The Federalist. A source familiar with Trump's security detail tells The Federalist that the former and future president's detail has been asking for beefed up protection and resources for weeks, but has been rebuffed time and time again by Biden's Department of Homeland Security. DHS, which oversees Secret Service protective detail, quote, was not responsive to those requests for more resources, according to this source. Buck, this is exactly what you were just saying, that the absence of appropriate security was noted, that there was a request that it be beefed up. And if this is true, it was denied, which is going to be a political scandal of its own.
Oh, absolutely. And as it well should be. I think that Biden's best defense is that he didn't know what was going on with this, just like he doesn't know what's going on with anything else. Although that doesn't really make any of us feel much better, I think, considering he's the commander in chief, technically. This will be something that I think there's a paper trail for, email trail. They'll be able to show these requests if, in fact, that reporting is accurate. By the way, Sean Davis, a good friend of mine, brilliant guy. And, I know he's going on the breaking news, too, but I tend to put stock in. I would do what you did, Megyn. I would trust enough in Sean to put forward him as a source. So I think Sean is generally rock solid. And if this is the case, you have to wonder in what universe would it be okay decision making for the sitting president who has his DOJ bringing two cases? I know it's separate, the DOJ, we all know that's preposterous. And then has an agent, a former agent, if you will, of the DOJ taking a massive demotion to go bring a prosecution against him in New York. I mean, when you see the lawfare campaign that is being waged, and then simultaneously, it seems there was a denial of additional security resources. I don't know how things can get much worse for the Biden administration than they are, but this would actually accomplish that. This would show us that Biden is not only senile and the whole thing has been a lie, but there's a viciousness and a vindictiveness to him that shows you what I've always been saying, by the way, which is that he's never been a man of any character or decency. That was always a front as well. So we'll see. I certainly think that we need to get to the bottom of this, because there can be no excuse for that kind of denial of resources given the threats against Trump. There's no explanation.
What about Kennedy coverage?
What about what?
Will Kennedy be getting coverage now?
Yeah. Well, RFKJ. Here, listen to this. Chad Pergram, Capitol Hill reporter, a producer for Fox News, long time. Trust Chad Pergram entirely. He reports that James Comer, who's head of oversight in the House, wants U.S. Secret Service Director Cheadle to appear for a hearing on the Trump shooting soon. His committee has oversight of Secret Service. Comer, quote, "My prayers are with President Trump and the victims of the assassination attempt at today's rally in Pennsylvania. I think the brave Secret Service members who put their lives at risk to protect President Trump, and for the American patriots in the audience who helped innocent victims. Political violence in all forms is un-American and unacceptable. There are many questions and Americans demand answers. I've already contacted the Secret Service for a briefing. I'm also calling on Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle to appear for a hearing. The Oversight Committee will send a formal invitation soon. Of course, there will be a full-fledged investigation into how, if that man we heard with the red hair, the eyewitness, is correct, regular Americans saw the shooter climb up on the rooftop in front of their very eyes with a rifle, which according to some reports is being described as an AR-15 rifle. They saw that with their eyes, tried to did call attention to law enforcement that was on scene, that they had seen it. And according to at least that one eyewitness, the local law enforcement seemed befuddled as to what to do. That's my word, not his. And now we see what appears to be the shooter dead on top of the rooftop. It certainly seems to confirm that set of circumstances. Bill, I want to show you this. It's a remarkable photo, and it was captured by former White House press corps member Doug Mills. If you zoom in, which we have here, over the president's left shoulder, keep in mind he got hit in the right ear, and you will see what appears to be, on a super close-up, it looks like it could be a bullet flying in the air. This is saying to the right of the president's head, you know how sometimes when you put the picture up, it flips? This to me looks, I mean, on screen, it's to the right, but the president's right ear would be on the other side. In any event, there will be a full investigation here, as we saw with JFK Jr., on exactly where that gunfire came from, Bill, and whether there was just one shooter.
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to do a whole deep dive on the deceased, the assailant's social media. They're going to look at his correspondence, his phone, his texts, and they're going to find out who he was affiliated. Hopefully, they'll do half the job that they did with the January 6th investigation. What I will say, speaking to law enforcement, complacency in law enforcement is not your friend. It's 99% mundane, 1% adrenaline, like we've seen here. These cops, where they're from, you know, it's probably not a high crime area. They're used to directing traffic, doing their daily duties. It's not often a president comes into town. So when they're hit with a stimulus, like, hey, there's a shooter up there, they weren't necessarily trained on how to react like that. I'm not making an excuse. I'm giving you an explanation. And the president, I'm telling you, that man has true grit. I mean, I would have been a pancake on that floor. I wouldn't have gone up. I would just say, carry me out of here.
That's not true. I would have, but not you.
This is something that needs to be learned, and there needs to be action. All this petty BS, what the left has been doing, cutting funding, looking to persecute them. I mean, I feel like I'm watching Braveheart. Just yell mercy, you know, and this man keeps on going. This will rally his voter base. This will rally the independents. And where is the violence coming from? The left. And it's going to be interesting to see how they spin this.
What can't happen is that Trump now has to go underground for the next 4 months because of this security environment. You know, I mean, but for sure, they're going to start to have to take his security much more seriously. You know, I said this last September when I went to interview him in person in New Jersey. There was far too little security around him. Granted, everyone knew I was not a threat. Things hadn't ramped up the way they have right now, where we're 4 months out and counting. But I can personally attest to the fact that it was very clear he did not have enough protection, even to my layperson's eyes. And I'm horrified to learn that's ongoing. We do have the Reagan clip queued up because I do think that that's probably the most similar historical situation to what we just saw today, though thank God it appears that President Trump was not hit nearly as bad as Reagan was. But to your point earlier, Bill, the Secret Service did not let Reagan stand there for a minute and do anything. They grabbed him, as I said, like a rag doll and got him into the presidential limousine. Let's watch it.
It doesn't make much sense, Henry. He puts you here and then he runs around where he turns. President Reagan! Get him out! Get him out! Get him out! Get him out!
And they did. This, by the way, from Michael Reagan, son of the late president. The Reagan family sends their prayers to President Trump and his family, special prayers for Melania as we remember what Nancy was going through in March 1981. We also have this in from Ivanka Trump. Thank you for your love and prayers for my father and for the other victims of today's senseless violence in Butler, Pennsylvania. I am grateful to the Secret Service and all the other law enforcement officers for their quick and decisive actions today. I continue to pray for our country. I love you, Dad, today and always. And so with that, you know, it is worth remembering, Buck, that though certainly we need to investigate where was the funding, where was the adequate security, and where was the Secret Service as this man took to the top of that roof. It can't be forgotten that they do risk their lives every day to protect people like Trump, people like Biden. Too many of them do not go home at the end of their shifts, both law enforcement and Secret Service. And, you know, there's been a long history of them losing their lives in these circumstances. It happens. It doesn't look like it was well handled, but you got to say a prayer for them too, because their lives were also on the line.
Right. Well, look, always, and I spent 18 months in the NYPD Intelligence Division on loan from the CIA, and so I was around a lot of law enforcement personnel working beside them for counterterrorism purposes, and so I'm very familiar with the risks that they take and the stories and what it's like for them and their families. No one, I think, is questioning the bravery, the patriotism, or the professionalism of any particular agent, Secret Service agent, or group of agents. That said, they have one job, and it is to prevent what basically just happened. What saved President Trump's life was not the Secret Service. It was the really divine intervention, I don't know what else you could call it, of a round fired at him from a rifle from an elevated position that missed him by perhaps 2 inches. It would have been different. It would have been fatal. And he was able to get those clearly aimed shots off from that elevated position. And you have to wonder how this kind of a thing could ever be possible. The clip you showed of Reagan, I mean, we learned this in the CIA, they learned this in the FBI, all the different federal agencies. You're actually most vulnerable usually when you're moving. When it comes to static security, they can usually do a better job. One of the reasons why they have motorcades and they're as large and well armed as they are is that when you're immobile is when things can be more problematic because people are, there's just more unknown introduced in the situation. As you see in the Reagan clip there, he's coming out on the street. There's a change of venue. There's people going with him. When you're preparing for a presidential speech, and President Trump was almost killed on live TV giving a speech. I mean, this is the absolute core of what the Secret Service needs to be able to do, is to make situations like that safe. And this guy got up on a rooftop and got off aimed shots and hit the president in the head with a rifle round. I mean, I don't. This is a failure, and I'm sorry. I remember people were upset at me initially when the Uvalde massacre happened, because I said there was no universe in which those officers. I know it's a different situation, but just a very different situation. But there's no universe in which those officers could explain waiting in the hallway as long as they did. I don't care what's going on inside. It's not possible. Yeah. It's against tactical doctrine. There is no world in which this is not a massive Secret Service failure. Now, that's not on any one individual, but that is the truth, and we need to understand that. And there needs to be. I mean, we'll get into these hearings and the so what of who signed what and all of that in the days ahead. But Secret Service got lucky. Secret Service got lucky, and that's not where they should be. It should never be. If they had taken the shooter out before he could get a shot off on the roof, I'd say, all right, the procedures worked. He got shots off, Megyn. We could have lost President Trump tonight. We were literal inches.
And we did lose one American, and
we did lose
the
another
fighting for their life
American
right now.
Patriot. Yeah.
For me, he was up on that podium for an eternity.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.